I always knew I was the black sheep in my family. For 29 years, I lived in the shadow of my younger brother Trevor, watching my parents shower him with praise while holding me to impossible standards. Despite their lack of support, I worked hard to build my own life recently, rewarding myself with a brand new car after years of saving every penny. Never did I imagine that my own flesh and blood would betray me, so completely stealing the one thing I earned through my own sweat and tears. What happened next exposed the true depths of my family's toxicity and changed our lives forever. Before I share how my family tried to sacrifice me to save my brother, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever dealt with toxic family dynamics that pushed you to your breaking point. Growing up in suburban Chicago, the contrast between how my parents treated Trevor and me was painfully obvious to everyone except Richard and Diane themselves. From early childhood, Trevor could do no wrong in their eyes. When he brought home C's on his report card, they praised his social intelligence. When I earned straight, as they questioned why I was not more well-rounded, the pattern continued throughout our teenage years. I vividly remember my 18th birthday when I received a card from my parents with $20 inside and a note saying college would be my responsibility because they needed to save for Trevor's future. Meanwhile, for Trevor's 16th birthday, just months earlier, they had thrown a massive party and gifted him a used Jeep. Their reasoning, Trevor needed more support to succeed while I would be fine on my own. And somehow I was. I worked 2 jobs throughout college, sometimes sleeping only 4 hours between shifts just to make tuition payments. My roommate Jake often found me studying at 3 in the morning after returning from my night job stocking shelves at the local supermarket. Those years were brutal, but they taught me self-reliance in ways my parents never could. When I graduated with my computer science degree, my parents attended the ceremony but spent most of the time talking about Trevor's recent acceptance to business school, which they were fully funding. No congratulations on my accomplishment, no recognition of my struggle. Just comments about how Trevor would probably graduate with honors in a few years. After college, I landed an entry-level position at a tech company and slowly climbed the ranks through dedication and late nights. I lived in a tiny studio apartment, ate ramen more often than not, and saved every extra dollar. My goal was clear financial independence and a life where I never had to ask my parents for anything. 3 months ago, after 7 years of saving, I finally purchased my dream car, an Audi S5 in metallic blue. Nothing extravagant by luxury standards, but to me, it represented every sacrifice and every extra hour worked. The day I drove it off the lot was perhaps the proudest moment of my life. Trevor, meanwhile, had dropped out of college twice each time with a different excuse that my parents readily accepted. First, it was the demanding curriculum. Then it was a professor who just did not understand his creative approach. He bounced between jobs, rarely lasting more than a few months at any position. Yet my parents continued to support him financially and emotionally, always assuring him he was just finding himself and his true calling would appear when the time was right. Despite the clear favoritism, I maintained minimal contact with my family, joining them for major holidays and occasional Sunday dinners out of a sense of obligation rather than desire. I had built a life separate from their toxicity, with friends who appreciated me and colleagues who respected my work ethic. 1 week before the incident, I attended Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. Trevor had recently started an entry-level sales position, and my parents acted as if he had been named CEO of a Fortune 500 company. As we gathered around the table, my mother raised her glass. A toast to Trevor's new career. "We always knew you were destined for great things, honey." I politely congratulated him, then mentioned a recent promotion I had received at work. "That's nice, Philip," my father said dismissively before turning back to Trevor. "Tell us more about your office. Does it have a view?" Later, as we moved to the living room for coffee, Trevor noticed my car keys on the side table. "Still driving that Audi, huh?" he commented, picking them up and examining the key fob. "Must be nice to splurge on yourself, while Mom and Dad help me get on my feet." "It is not a splurge when you save for 7 years," I replied calmly, taking the keys back. "You always were selfish with your things," he said, with a laugh that carried an undercurrent of resentment. "Remember how you never let me borrow your video games as kids? Because you broke them, and never replaced them. I reminded him. "Boys, stop bickering," my mother interjected. "Philip, your brother is just making conversation. Why do you always have to turn everything into an argument about the past?" The evening continued downhill from there with another lecture about family loyalty and how I needed to be more supportive of Trevor's journey. I left earlier than planned, declining dessert and citing work the next day. In the days that followed, my phone filled with passive-aggressive texts from my mother and voicemails from my father about my attitude at dinner. I ignored most of them, focusing instead on my life and my work. Little did I know that the tension was building toward a catastrophe that would forever alter our family dynamic. It was a normal Tuesday at work. I was in the middle of coding when my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally I would let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Is this Philip Anderson?" a serious voice asked. "Yes, speaking," I replied, immediately tense. "This is Officer Ramirez with the Chicago Police Department. Your vehicle has been involved in a serious accident. We need you to come to the scene as soon as possible." My heart dropped. Was anyone hurt? I do not understand. My car is in the parking garage at my office. No injuries reported, but there's significant property damage. And sir, your car is definitely not at your office. The address is 1420 West Madison Street. I rushed to the scene, my mind racing with confusion. Had my car been stolen from the garage? How was this possible? When I arrived, my confusion turned to utter devastation. My beautiful Audi was completely destroyed, the front end crushed where it had plowed into the storefront of a local business. Glass and debris littered the sidewalk. Police cars with flashing lights surrounded the area, and officers were taking photographs of the scene. As I approached in shock, Officer Ramirez met me and explained that the car had crashed into the storefront after hours, so fortunately no one was inside the business. Then he asked a question that caught me completely off guard. "Do you know the driver? He claims to be your brother?" I froze. "My brother, Trevor." The officer nodded and pointed to a police cruiser where I could see Trevor sitting in the back seat, head down. I walked over in a daze, and when Trevor looked up, his eyes were bloodshot and glassy. "Sir, we found your brother behind the wheel with a blood alcohol content twice the legal limit," Officer Ramirez explained. "He also has a suspended license from a previous DUI. When asked about the vehicle, he initially claimed it was his, then said it belonged to his brother who had loaned it to him." Trevor's eyes met mine, pleading. "Philip, do not tell them it is your car," he slurred. "Just say I borrowed it with permission. Please, bro." The officer looked at me expectantly. In that moment, I faced a choice that would define our relationship forever. "Officer, that is my car," I said firmly. And no, I did not give him permission to drive it. I had no idea he had taken it. I was at work all day with my car parked in the office garage. Trevor's face crumpled. "You traitor. After everything our family has done for you?" The officer nodded grimly and explained that Trevor would be arrested for grand theft auto DUI, driving with a suspended license, and property damage. They would need my statement as the vehicle owner. As I gave my statement, I called my parents, naively expecting sympathy or at least understanding. Their reaction shocked me to my core. "What do you mean?" "You told them. You did not give him permission," my father shouted through the phone. "Do you have any idea what this will do to his record? To his future? He stole my car, Dad. He was driving drunk. He could have killed someone. He is your brother. You are supposed to protect him." 20 minutes later, my parents arrived at the scene, not to support me, but to berate me in public. "How could you do this to your own brother?" My mother cried, tears streaming down her face. "After everything we have done for you, what exactly have you done for me?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "I put myself through college. I built my career without help. I saved for years to buy that car that Trevor just destroyed." My father stepped close, his finger jabbing at my chest. "If you press charges against your brother, you can consider yourself cut off from this family permanently. Is that what you want? I am already cut off, Dad. I always have been. The only difference is, now you are saying it out loud." Their faces registered shock as they realized I would not back down. My father stormed off to speak with the officers, while my mother continued pleading with me, cycling between guilt trips and vague promises that they would make it right if I just recanted my statement. I stood firm despite the emotional turmoil raging inside me. After the police finished processing the scene and took Trevor away in handcuffs, I returned to my apartment alone, physically and emotionally exhausted. Around midnight, my phone rang again. It was my father. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice low and threatening. "Tomorrow you will go to the police station and tell them you were confused. You will say you did give Trevor permission to use your car. You were just angry in the moment. I will not lie for him, Dad. Then you are no son of mine. Do you understand what will happen to him with his previous record? He will go to prison. That is what happens when you drive drunk with a suspended license in a stolen car," I replied, surprised by my own calm. "We will never forgive you for this," he hissed before hanging up. I sat in the dark of my apartment, feeling strangely free despite the pain. For the first time in my life, I had refused to minimize myself to protect Trevor. The cost was high, but so was the alternative. The next morning brought an unexpected knock at my door. Two plainclothes detectives stood in the hallway, badges in hand. "Philip Anderson. I am Detective Wilson, and this is Detective Morales. We need to ask you some follow-up questions about the incident involving your vehicle yesterday." I invited them in confused. I had already given my statement. As we sat at my small kitchen table, Detective Wilson opened a folder. There seemed to be some discrepancies in the statements we have received. "Your father and brother have now both stated that you did in fact give permission for Trevor to use your vehicle." My confusion turned to disbelief. "That is absolutely false. I never gave him permission. I was at work all day. Your father has submitted text messages showing you agreed to let Trevor borrow your car." Detective Morales added sliding printouts across the table. I looked at the alleged text exchange in shock. There it was, messages that appeared to be between Trevor and me, with me clearly stating, "Sure, take the Audi. Keys are on my dresser. Just be careful." "These are fake," I said immediately. "I never sent these messages. Check my actual phone records." I pulled out my phone and showed them my real text history with Trevor, which contained nothing about borrowing my car. The last text was from 3 weeks ago about an unrelated matter. "Sir, falsifying evidence is a serious offense," Detective Wilson said gravely. "We have also received statements from witnesses at your apartment building who contradict what your father and brother are claiming. They explained that the building security guard had seen Trevor entering my apartment using a key yesterday morning when I was clearly at work. The security footage showed him leaving with something in his hand. Additionally, the parking garage attendant confirmed that Trevor had driven my car out around 9:30 in the morning, appearing nervous when asked for ID. The full picture was becoming horrifyingly clear. My father and brother were attempting to frame me to make it appear that I had loaned Trevor my car and was now lying to avoid insurance liability for the accident. "I want to press charges," I said firmly. "Not just against Trevor for stealing my car, but against my father for filing a false police report and attempting to frame me." The detectives exchanged glances. "This is a serious family matter." "Are you certain?" "More certain than I have ever been about anything." After the detectives left, my phone rang with a call from my insurance company. The representative explained that my father had already filed a claim stating I had authorized Trevor to drive my car. If that were true, any damages would be my responsibility, since Trevor was an unauthorized driver under my policy. I immediately called Lisa, an attorney friend from college who specialized in criminal law. After hearing my story, she agreed to meet right away. "Philip, this is incredibly serious," she said after reviewing the evidence. "If their plan had worked, you could have been charged with insurance fraud. Your father is actively trying to set you up to save Trevor." With Lisa's guidance, I met with the district attorney the following day to give a formal statement about the attempted frame-up. During the investigation that followed, we discovered that this was not the first time my father had covered up Trevor's legal troubles. 2 years ago, Trevor had been involved in a hit-and-run that was mysteriously settled when the victim suddenly refused to press charges after receiving a large cash payment. The decision to formally press charges against both Trevor and my father was the hardest choice I have ever made. But as Lisa reminded me, they were willing to send you to prison to save Trevor. This is not family loyalty, this is abuse. As the investigation deepened, unexpected support came from my Aunt Melissa, my mother's sister who had witnessed previous incidents where my parents had bailed Trevor out of trouble. She provided crucial testimony about patterns of behavior and previous cover-ups she had witnessed. The security footage from my apartment building clearly showed Trevor stealing my spare key from a drawer in my bedroom. Even more damning, investigators discovered emails between my father and Trevor discussing how to fix the situation by making it appear I had authorized Trevor to use the car. My emotional state during this period swung between determination and crushing guilt. Was I betraying my family as my mother's tearful voicemails claimed? Or was I finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of being the family scapegoat? The district attorney's decision came 3 weeks after the accident. They would pursue additional charges against my father for obstruction of justice, filing a false police report and attempted insurance fraud. An arrest warrant was issued and my father was taken into custody during a business meeting, maximizing his public humiliation. My mother called me screaming that I had destroyed our family. I let her words wash over me, no longer affected by guilt trips that had controlled me for decades. "Mom," I said, when she finally paused for breath, "did you ever consider that I am part of this family too? That I deserve protection and support, just as much as Trevor?" Her silence was the only answer I needed. 3 months after the accident, I walked into the courthouse for the hearing. My stomach knotted with anxiety. Lisa walked beside me, a reassuring presence, as we navigated the crowded hallway. My mother stood near the courtroom doors, her face drawn and hostile. When our eyes met, she looked away, physically turning her back. The proceedings began with Trevor's case. To my surprise, he had agreed to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for his testimony against our father. When he entered the courtroom, he looked smaller somehow, the golden glow of parental favoritism no longer illuminating him. My father, by contrast, had refused any plea deals, insisting on his innocence despite the mountain of evidence. His attorney had tried multiple tactics to dismiss the charges, all unsuccessful. When my turn came to testify, I walked to the stand, feeling every eye in the courtroom on me. I spoke clearly about the theft, the accident, and the subsequent attempt to frame me. During cross-examination, my father's attorney tried to paint me as jealous of Trevor, suggesting I was pursuing charges out of lifelong resentment rather than legitimate grievances. "Is it not true that you have always been envious of your brother's close relationship with your parents?" he asked smugly. "What I envied," I replied steadily, "was having parents who supported me the way they supported him. What I wanted was equality, not preferential treatment." When the evidence of fabricated text messages and emails plotting the frame-up were presented, my father lost his composure. He stood up, pointing at me. "You, ungrateful. Little, do you know what I have done for this family? Everything I did was to protect us." The judge's gavel came down hard. "Mr. Anderson, control yourself, or I will hold you in contempt." His outburst did nothing to help his case. The judge was particularly harsh in her assessment of his actions. "Mr. Halfew, Anderson, as a parent, your role is to teach your children about consequences and responsibility. Instead, you have taught one son that he is above the law, and the other that his well-being is expendable. This court finds such behavior particularly reprehensible." The verdicts came as no surprise. Trevor was sentenced to 18 months with possibility of early release for good behavior. My father received 3 years for the more serious charges of conspiracy and obstruction of justice. As the courtroom cleared, my mother confronted me in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "Are you happy now? You have destroyed our family. Your father is going to prison because of you." I took a deep breath, feeling surprisingly calm. "No, Mom. Dad and Trevor destroyed our family when they decided that I was disposable. They are going to prison because of their own choices." She shook her head in disbelief. "I do not even know who you are anymore." "That is the problem, Mom. You never did. 6 months have passed since that day in court. I have rebuilt my life with a new car, more modest but fully insured. I moved to a different city for a promotion starting fresh, where no one knows the painful history of my family. The most unexpected development came in the form of a letter from Trevor 3 months into his sentence. Unlike the manipulative blame-shifting I expected, it contained what seemed like genuine remorse. I never realized how much I relied on Mom and Dad covering for me, until they could not anymore, he wrote. For the first time, I am facing the consequences of my actions, and I can see how unfairly you were treated all these years. I do not expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I am sorry. I responded cautiously, setting clear boundaries, but leaving the door cracked open for a potential relationship in the future if he proves his change is genuine. My relationship with my parents remains severed, though I have reconnected with extended family who had been alienated by my father's controlling behavior over the years. Aunt Melissa has become particularly close, revealing that she always saw the unfair treatment, but felt powerless to intervene. The hardest lesson I have learned is that sometimes family is not defined by blood, but by respect and mutual support. I have found a chosen family among friends who value me for who I am not, for what I can sacrifice for others. Trevor continues to show signs of growth through prison rehabilitation programs, according to his letters. Whether this change will persist after his release remains to be seen, but I am cautiously optimistic that hitting rock bottom has given him the wake-up call he needed for decades. As for me, I have found freedom in setting boundaries and walking away from toxic relationships, even when they are with the people who were supposed to love me most. The road has been painful, but the peace on the other side is worth every difficult step. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to take advantage of you? Share your experience in the comments below. Do not forget to like and subscribe if you believe in holding people accountable, even when it is difficult. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the most important ones for your well-being. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself sometimes.